Alright guys, my name is MetaGoblin and today we're going to be counting down the top 10 most overpowered spells in Classic World of Warcraft. Just before I jump in, please do give me a quick follow on Twitch. Since Classic launches, I'm going to be streaming over on Twitch a lot more. And if you're watching this video and you're a little bit annoyed that I haven't mentioned a spell that you consider to be very overpowered and should be on this list, then be sure to get a discussion going in the comment section below and tell me how much I'm wrong. Anyway, let's jump into the video. The thing I've tried to do with this video is, one, not feature spells that have been on different videos, that I've come across anyway, and I've tried to pick one spell per class just to kind of leave it a bit fair, which means some of these might not be insanely overpowered, but they're probably one of the most overpowered spells in that class's toolkit. So let's jump in. First of all, we have a Paladin spell, which is Lay of Hands. Okay, heals the target for an amount equal to the Paladin's health and restores 550 of their mana, drains all of the Paladin's remaining mana in the process. Let's be honest guys, Lay of Hands is basically a cheat code, right? It's so powerful I feel like I'm typing a health cheat code into a Grand Theft Auto game. It's essentially a self-resurrection. It's providing you can actually cast a spell fast enough, it is basically a self-resurrection. It's an extra life. Paladin, they have a number of seriously overpowered raid-saving abilities like this, but their drawback is usually their extremely high cooldowns to make up for that. For instance, Lay of Hands has a 1 hour cooldown which can be reduced down to 40 minutes with talents. Also, Lay of Hands is so OP that if you use Lay of Hands in a duel, it's basically globally considered cheating, right? And if any Paladin uses Lay of Hands in a duel, you're basically a scumbag and the duel is forfeit, and everyone just kind of naturally accepts that. For the second spell on this list, we have a pre-spell, which is Mind Control. Mind Control is one of my favourite abilities in the game. Okay, let's read it out. Controls a humanoid mind up to level 62, but increases the time between attacks by 25, lasts 1 minute. This is probably the only spell in World of Warcraft that still hasn't seen its full potential. If you think about it, there's hundreds of different humanoid mobs in the game. There's probably even thousands on the retail game. And Blizzard have basically given priests the key to all of these mobs, right? And all their unique and individual spells and abilities. Throughout WoW's history, this spell has had a number of seriously overpowered, exploited kind of opportunities, which have been, quickly hotfixed before it became incredibly game-breaking. But the funny thing is that it still happens today in retail. People still find little bugs and exploits to use to really exploit mind control to give them an edge in, a competitive environment like raiding or PvP. So let me give you some examples from back in vanilla. In the Scarlet Monastery, you can basically mind control the Scarlet Wizards, who have an arcane explosion of about 150 damage on a 1 second cooldown that you can just spam and just wipe groups of it. It's actually insane. I've heard stories about people mind controlling a healer mob, like a healer humanoid mob in a Blackwind lair, in that kind of trap room where it's really annoying, you're really slow and you have to walk across all those traps. And basically it gives the user an instant cast spammable heal, right, to just keep the entire raid alive. It's basically a cheat code, right? Back in Heroic, the days of, sorry, not back in Heroic, but back in the days of heroic farming dungeons in the Burning Crusade, this is from my experience, I used to actually use Mind Control to control one of the Warlocks, and I used to buff my entire party with a very high Shadow Resistance buff, which I would stack with my own Shadow Resistance protection spell, which would basically make us completely immune to the Shadow Bolt AoE spell from the Grand Warlock Nevercurse, whatever his name is, which normally, that mechanic, if the fight lasted that long, would literally cause a wipe because it's quite difficult to deal with, but I could just negate all that damage by stealing a buff. There's also melee orcs in that dungeon which you could mind control and cast as spammable melee AoE attack, which are just one-shot packs. I've seen some footage I'll put up on the screen right now of a guy mind controlling the Alteric Valley bosses, well, the kind of battleground outside the battleground bosses. And apart from this, it's obviously very useful in PvP because you can just force people to jump off cliffs and to fall to their death. I mean, overall, it's just a really fun gimmick ability which can be exploited from time to time. I mean, tell me about more overpowered exploits that you've come across, with mind control in the comment section down below. For number 3, we have Chain Lightning, okay? Hurls a lightning bolt at the target, deal nature damage, and then jumping to additional nearby enemies. Each jump reduces the damage by 30%. Affects total of 3 targets, right? Now this might be a strange one for people who aren't very familiar with vanilla and have a lot of experience with vanilla, because we're talking about an AoE ability, but AoE abilities were a little bit different in vanilla because very often they were actually used to increase single target DPS, because for some odd reason they actually did better damage in a single target damage scenario. So things like multi-shot and whirlwind were actually used in a single target rotation, and Chain Lightning was probably the best example of this, right? Because Chain Lightning had the ability to crit literally over 2k damage, sometimes 3k. I even found a clip of these guys using an exploit on the PTR to make a crit for 25k back in vanilla, right? Most people have probably seen an Elemental Shaman montage by now. You know, Orcbit has a really good one he's just uploaded, and Hamsterwheel has another good one. The reason for Chain Lightning being so overpowered was because it just had so many talents in the elemental talent tree that boosted its damage, right? You had Concussion that increased the damage by 5%, Call of Thunder increased the crit damage, then Elemental Fury doubled the crit damage even further, then you had Elemental Mastery cooldown to further buff your damage. For our fourth spell, we have a Warlock spell, which is Summon Doomguard, right? This is probably one of the coolest spells in the game. Let's read it out. Begins a ritual that sacrifices a random participant to summon a Doomguard. The Doomguard must be immediately enslaved or will attack the ritual participants. Requires the caster and 4 additional party members to complete the ritual. In order to participate, all members must right-click the portal and not move away until the ritual is complete. So, Let's jump in, right? You learn this spell, you don't get this from a class trainer or anything, you literally have a 2%, this has a 2% drop chance from the Dreadlords and the Blasted Lands, and they're elite mobs, they're not the most easy mob in the game to solo, so it's kind of like you have to kill like all these mini-bosses, but priests also need to kill these mobs as well, for the Benediction quest, so you might, nonetheless it is quite rare for a Warlock to have this spell because it's just so difficult to obtain in the first place, you have to kill all these elites on your own. The concept, right, this is what the concept is, and it's what makes vanilla so unique and different to retail, because it's just totally mental once you hear about this, right? Because the idea is that, here's the whole idea: if you kill enough Dreadlords, you will eventually steal this forbidden piece of knowledge from the Dreadlords contained within the book, and this spellbook is difficult to obtain. It's difficult to obtain for a reason, because the power of summoning a Doomguard is way too powerful for any mortal to literally comprehend, which is why, when you cast a spell, you actually die in the process, and another party member will also be sacrificed. So, I'll put some footage up so you can see what it looks like. So, once you've basically learnt the spell, the plan of action is to first summon a Doom Portal, which is basically a small altar. Then you and 4 other party members channel the power of the portal together, and then this Doomguard is summoned, right? You will probably die in the, well, it doesn't, I think sometimes 2 people die, sometimes 1 people die, it needs testing. Because this spell just hasn't been used very often, right? But I've seen people die, 2 people die when you cast this spell. So the idea is that you put a soul stone on yourself, right? So you can res yourself and enslave a Doomguard just in case you die. However, the problem is that the enslaved Doomguard isn't actually that powerful, and I don't think you can bring it into raids. So, but when he's untamed, he's literally unstoppable. It basically has the equal stats of an elite mini-boss, and has the potential to wipe out entire towns of low-level players, right? So it's a bit of a strange, immersing lore gimmick spell that is, fairly difficult to obtain in the first place. And I see it personally, I just see it as like a bit of a stupid, gimmicky, well, not stupid because it's awesome, but it's a bit of a gimmicky party game, Doomguard roulette, right? If you got like 10 groups to do this at once in the middle of a storm or something, you'd probably be able to wipe the entire server, or just even crash the server, but quite possibly. For number 5, we have a druid spell, which is Dire Bear form, right? Shapeshift into a dire bear form, increasing melee attack power by, which is based on your level, armor contribution from armor and leather items increased by 370%, right? Stamina increased by 25%, also protects the caster from polymorph effects and allows the use of various bear abilities. So, dire bear form, its use is mostly used in PvP, but imagine a few skilled Resto Druids use it in PvE situations. In my opinion, this is like another cheat code spell, because you basically have you press one button on your action bars and you become a good geared protection warrior instantaneously, right? Your health is bumped up, your armor is bumped up, and you have like the equal armor of basically somebody fully decked out in play gear. Like druids use this trick a lot when basically they put the hots up and then go into bear form while they might pop their own defensive cooldowns, and basically they use it while you pop your offensive cooldowns. I've seen like people duel on retail, people still use this trick, like if a warrior pops his recklessness, they pop into bear form, because bear form is so overpowered, it's soaking up all that damage, right? And it's just still a trick even used today. So it doesn't even matter what spec you play, you still always have access to die bear form. So for number 6 we have Wing Clip, which is at a first glance probably not that overpowered, but wait until you get into it, okay? So inflicts 50 damage to the target, reduces target's movement speed by 60% for 10 seconds. So first of all, the reason why this ability is so overpowered is obviously because this is a spammable slow ability with a very long duration. It's probably like the equal slow debuff as a hamstring, but hamstring costs rage. We can just cast this like instantly and never really run out. So it made it ridiculously easy for a hunter to basically kite other people away. Now there's another cheeky reason why this spell is overpowered, right? So as you probably know, weapon proc effects or RNG effects or guaranteed hit effects, right, they're caused by weapon hits. Every time your weapon swings, it has a chance for something to proc. This will either be your white damage or a special attack damage. So this means that each wing clip has a chance to cause that weapon proc again. Since it is a spammable special ability, this meant that wing clip could be exploited to increase the proc chance of basically all weapons or abilities, trinkets, all that kind of thing. For instance, there is a hunter on YouTube who has dual wield dragon call, right? Dragon call swords, and he forces the weapon to proc like 3 times very quickly with wing clip, so that it creates a stampede of emerald little dragons, and it's pretty cool. You should go and watch it out. For number 7 we have a mage ability, and that is Cold Snap, right? When activated, this spell finishes the cooldown on all of your frost spells, 10-minute cooldown. I also feel that this spell is basically a cheat code. You imagine, right, you're playing a single target player game like Skyrim or something, there's a big fight ahead and you know about it, and then you make a save game before the fight, and if you lose you can just load that save game, right? And then you try again. Basically, Cold Snap is basically the same kind of concept. It's a full cooldown reset for all of your frost abilities, right? You make a mistake, you can start it all over again, or you can use it to just do a hell of a lot of damage. It's absolutely essential for winning a duel because you can exploit it. You can exploit the effect to get 2 ice barriers, which means you'll be able to easily soak up about 2k hit points of damage. And you also get to reset Ice Nova, Cone of Cold, stuff like that, to essentially get to pull off 2 really quick shatter crits in one go, and obviously you can reset Ice Block as well, so it's pretty overpowered. For number 8 we have Blade Fury, right? Increases your attack speed by 20%, in addition attacks strike an additional opponent, lasts 15 seconds. Blade Fury is, probably one of the best cleaving abilities in the game, next to like sweeping strikes. Back when cleaving, was much less of a thing in vanilla, AoE and cleaving is a sparse tactic because you commonly just pulled aggro from a tank, so you didn't want to annoy the tank and cause a wipe. So this ability is used more in a single target, it's used more of a single target cooldown at endgame, because it is still functional as a single target cooldown. It's pretty useful. However, it does shine the most when you are probably doing actual cleave damage, but you're probably going to be more likely doing cleave damage when you're soloing content. This ability becomes practically game changing when you finally hit high level enough to unlock it. Alright, firstly, it increases your weapon speed, which will stack with Slice and Dice, and will even stack with a Troll Racial, and later on in the expansions will stack with Bloodlust and Heroism, right? Right, this basically means, and also means, all of your white damage is copied over to a second target. Every single white hit and every single special attack hit is duplicated, right? It lasts 15 seconds, right? That's quite a wad of time. That's basically how long it takes to kill one mob. It's quite a long time. And it's just insanely strong for an offensive cooldown, because it only has 2 minutes, right? 2-minute cooldown, and the duration is really long. It's like kind of retail standard cooldown, right? It's more on par with retail cooldowns, since vanilla cooldowns are normally quite long and double the duration of what they are in retail. And yeah, I mean, there aren't many. Basically, this cooldown just flat out doubles your DPS, right? So there's not many cooldowns that have the power to do that. For number 9 we have a warrior ability, which is Retaliation. Instantly counterattack an enemy that strikes you in melee range for 15 seconds. Melee attacks made from behind cannot be counter-attacked. A maximum of 30 attacks will cause retaliation, right? This ability really shines when you're leveling up. Warrior can be like a little weak in the early stages of leveling until you get like a little bit of decent gear, and taking down more than one mob was pretty scary most of the time. But a Retaliation made taking down mobs pretty, it made it capable. You were basically capable of taking down probably like 5 mobs at once if you were quite skillful, because it essentially made you immortal for about 15 seconds, and with every hit you take it would retaliate the damage equal to your weapon damage, right? So if mobs attacked you really quickly, they would essentially just be punching themselves in the face until they kill themselves, right? You really did feel like an absolute god when you use this ability. And yeah, in PvP, however, it didn't seem the same kind of benefit, because most people were just like, they'll see you pop Retaliation, just leave you the hell alone because they don't want to mess with it. So when I was writing a script for this video, I thought I had 10 things written down, but apparently I only have 9. So I'm just pretty much going to add one in at the last minute, try and wig it in, because I'm really, short for time. Basically, I'm going to put down Windfury Totem, right? Because Windfury Totem, basically any totem used by a shaman, can become extremely overpowered, providing you are in the correct group for it. So, for instance, in a Windfury Totem, you just put a healing shaman next to basically all the melee DPS in the group. One is going to be able to heal that group pretty effectively with Chain Heal, because Chain Heal is another really overpowered ability, but he's going to be able to boost the damage massively of every single melee DPS, particularly rogues, with Windfury procs. And if they have Hand of Justice and sword specialization and stuff like that, where they also get extra hits, or maybe even have Thrash Blade, stuff like this, then they can basically put out some seriously high DPS numbers. So Windfury Totem is the last spell, totem, ability, whatever, on this list, and that's where I'm going to end the video there before my voice absolutely implodes on itself. My name is Hamsterwheel, and until my next video, ciao.